Hey there guys, what is going on? Gale right here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi Memoria Freese video. And today we're not just going to be doing any sort of should you summon or any sort of top 10 list or any sort of like run guide. No. Today is going to be a discussion video between you guys and myself regarding the state of Danmachi Memoria Freese. I just want to generally talk about what I think about the game right now, what are my feelings towards the game's content, and how I treat the game, the way I play the game primarily, right? I want to talk about that more so than anything else because I feel like, you know, with the game being 5 years old now on the JP server, 4.5 on the US server, I think this is the perfect opportunity for me to just talk about, you know, the game itself plainly and give you guys what I think about the game as a veteran player, somebody who's been playing since day one, obviously taking a couple of breaks here and there in between, but generally playing the game since day one. So leave a comment down below if you're a new player, old player, whatever it may be. Leave a comment down below because I want to see what you guys think as well, because I want this to be a two-way discussion. You know, what do you guys think about the game? What do I think about the game? You guys can respond to me, I can respond to you guys in the comments, of course. So leave it in the comment section down below. Of course, leave a like if you enjoy this type of video as well. If you want to see me talk about something else, maybe, you know, if you want me to talk about the meta or just generally like something particular about the game, something that happened previously and you want to see my opinions on it, let me know. Of course, I want to see what you guys want to see down, you know, in future videos and stuff. I would like to see what you want. And of course, hit that subscribe button. There is a picture on screen that'll show you how many of you actually don't subscribe to the channel. You know, I'm seeing you guys and I want you to subscribe. It's free of cost. It doesn't take much. It's literally one click. Come on, guys. I don't think you even have to scroll down, by the way. You don't even have to scroll down to subscribe. So I'm watching you, all right? All right, let's talk about the state of Danmachi Memoria Freese. And I want to preface this. I did a video a few weeks ago, I think about a month or two ago, when we were almost at the end of Danmachi Memoria Freese's 5th year anniversary. We were at the end of the 5th anniversary for Danmemo. And I made a 5 years of Danmachi Memoria Freese video. Some of you guys may have watched it, some of you guys maybe didn't. You guys can go check it out if you want. And I was gushing about the game back then. I was very much, you know, trying to invite players to play the game because I personally felt, you know, the game is good. And I do still believe the game is good. And that's, I think, the first thing I will say. To me, the state of the game is good, but in a certain manner. If you play the game in a certain manner, and I'll talk about that in just a moment, because I think that is very important as well. It's very subjective, this topic, I feel. So to me, I was inviting players to want to play this game because I felt like you could experience amazing things in this game in terms of a great storytelling experience, some great characters, and as a collector as well, you would be able to get an easy way to collect your favorite characters. Because have you seen the gacha system? I mean, look at the gacha system. Well, if it didn't just kick me out immediately. But if you look at the gacha system, for example, look at this bell banner. 2nd, 4th, 7th, and 10th draws are guaranteed. And if you're a collector who just wants to collect one copy of each unit, all you need to do, literally, is do 2 multis and you're guaranteed them. Like, honestly, I will still maintain Danmachi Memoria Freese has one of the better gacha systems in order to collect characters. It's not a great system if you're trying to max out characters, because we'll talk about that later on and how difficult it is, but it's one of the best collecting systems. And even if you are a paid player, you know, you're just interested in collecting characters, all you need to do is spend 400 paid iris, literally. But even then, I personally believe like it's so easy to at least, you know, try and get your first, you know, all the characters in the first couple of multis, and then you can use the paid banner basically to get the last copy of the character you want, especially if you're summoning on, say, a 3-unit banner or something, which we have here, for example. Obviously, this is a bit of a weird one. This is a rerun sort of gacha, so it doesn't really count. It won't have the things that I mentioned. But if you had a 3-man banner like this, you could easily do like 4 multis, get the characters you want, and hightail it out of there. Getting currency as well in this game is not difficult at all, especially if you're a casual, right? Because even if you get, let's say, the top 5,000 rank, which should be easy in my personal opinion for even the average player to get there, if you have, like, say, a lot of +2s and +3s, I think you can get the top 5,000 very easily. You will get at least 500 iris, and that's on a weekly basis because you alternate between Record Buster or War Games. Obviously, this week's a little bit different because we have Familiar War Games live right now, or it'll be going live in a little bit, of course. but we have Familiar War Games live, right? And so that's something to note as well, right? Is we have Familiar War Games right now going on, so that's something to keep in mind. So there is a little bit of, you know, a two-way street in regards to that, right? Where you can get a lot of currency as well, and you know, the gacha system is great for collectors. But now I want to talk about the game itself. The game caters towards, in my personal opinion, two types of players. Like I said, the one is the collector. If you're a collector, you're trying to get that one unit, you're going to be using, you're going to do that. You're going to literally just go into the gacha system, and you're going to be able to get like your characters very, very easily. The second type of players it caters to is the story nerds, and I'm one of those. I'm a player who's a major story nerd, and I think that's where the game is good, because this is Omori's playground, it feels like. Of course, you know, Omori has the Sword Art Online light novel going on and the Danmachi mainline novels going on. But in terms of the other stories, the other maybe non-canon stuff or other canonical stuff he wants to do, he has nowhere to place them, because obviously he does, either it's a publishing issue or it's a writing issue or whatever it may be. I don't know what it is, but he can't directly publish those stories through, you know, light novels or mangas, unfortunately. Instead, what he's doing is he's placing them in this game, and we have seen some amazing stories in the past. You know, I feel like a majority of the Christmas stories have been straight bangers, you know, and then on top of that you have the anniversary stories, which are amazing as well. You also have these stories in between that do extremely well. You have the collaboration stories that are also pretty decent outside of the AOT one. All of them were very solid in their own right. So, you know, in theory, if you look at all of the stories that we've had, if you are a big fan of the Danmachi franchise, you would absolutely adore this game, in all honesty. If you're just into the story, the lore, and everything of that sort, you are going to fall in love with this game. But, and that is one of the big issues, is that if you aren't a story buff, or you maybe are, but you're looking for something a little bit more, that's where the issues begin. But we'll come on to that in just a moment, because I want to also address one more thing about the stories themselves. I've always said that for me personally, when it comes to a gacha game, a story is very, very important, especially if you're an original story, or even if you are based off a franchise, because in all honesty, sometimes that's what can keep you in the game consistently. And I say this for games like Genshin, FGO, Danmachi, and they're the games I play primarily. Obviously, I play Dokkan as well, but Dokkan, it's a Dragon Ball thing. I turn off my brain when it comes to that game, basically. But when it comes to a game like Danmachi or you know, Genshin or FGO, I played because I like the characters, I like the story, and that's what drives me to play those games, and that's very important as well. And the stories are so good in Danmachi that they are also becoming light novels or manga adaptations. Like, for example, I think it was the Christmas 2019 or 2020 story that has become a manga adaptation, or has become a manga. It's been turned into a manga. The Astrea Records story from the 3rd anniversary, that's becoming a light novel. There is a celebration for that going on, I think, right now in the game, or it'll go live, I think, today or tomorrow, basically. So that's also something to note. So the stories are good enough to become that. You're getting light novel stories for free in this game. Heck, let's talk about Sword Art Online, right? Sword Art Online light novels, right? We aren't seeing anime adaptations for those because the first season was such a disaster that JC staff and the production committee just don't want to have another season of Sword Art Online for some reason, which is a damn shame. But we are getting adaptations for those in Danmachi Memoria Freese. So if you can't get those light novels for one reason or another, you know, you might want a physical copy but it's not available at your store, or you might want an ebook of it but you can't download it or buy it because it's not available on your ebook store, you can just download Danmachi Memoria Freese and experience all the light novel stories that you're missing out on because they're not making an anime version of it, nor is it available for you to purchase in your stores. Or maybe you can't afford it. It's also possible that's the case, and that's absolutely fair, right? You may not be able to afford the the Sword Art Online light novels as well, which makes sense. So that's another thing as well. It's something that's so cool and so well done in my personal opinion, and I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm glad that they're able to do this, where they're able to adapt the Sword Art Online novels in this game. It's so nice. It's so nice. But that's a beautiful thing. Now, obviously, there's two sides of the coin, right? We have the collectors, we have the the players who are here for the story. But there are also players who are here for something more, and I think that's where the issues begin, and that is where I feel like the state of Danmachi Memoria Freese to a lot of veteran players and players who are looking for something more goes down tremendously in their minds, their thought processes. The content in this game has been consistent, and I think that's a good thing and a bad thing. The fact that it's consistent, we get Record Buster every other week, we get War Games every other week, we get a dose of Familiar Rush every 3 weeks, or we get Familiar War Games every 3 weeks, or something along those lines. We get a Familiar event every 3 weeks, we get 7 Zone every week, and that's mainly the content there. And that's a problem, because at a point you do this process over and over and over again that it feels so repetitive that players they're like, I can't be bothered for this repetition anymore. And that's understandable. When you repeat a process so many times over and over, it can become a problem. And I think that's a big problem to a lot of players as well. And sometimes some of these events, specifically stuff like Familiar Rush, require you, especially if you're in a top Familiar trying to score as high as possible, you're trying to basically get the maximum score. That means potentially having to give up on some of your sleep, because maybe your round wasn't active until your nap time or sleep time, basically your sleeping period. Let's say you're awake from like 9 to you're awake from, let's say, 8 to 10 p.m., right? 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. But your round, the round you want to do, say round 2 on Familiar Rush, isn't going to be open until let's say 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. Well, what are you gonna do? You're gonna have to stay up, right? You're gonna have to stay up to make sure you're there for your Familiar, trying to score as high as possible. And it's an issue. It's an issue that I feel like a lot of players may have with the game, where the game doesn't necessarily ask for too much, but sometimes it asks for a little bit too much, especially depending on if you're in a higher position, like you're a veteran player, you're in the top 32 Familiar, you're demanded more, and that can be a problem for a lot of players. And then of course, just generally also doing the same thing over and over again. As much as I like the gameplay, personally, I'm a fan of the gameplay, the core gameplay, the RPG style, skills and everything. It works tremendously well for me personally. For a lot of players, that can get a bit tedious, it can get a bit repetitive, like I said, and it can get very, very annoying really quickly. So that is something to take note of as well, is that veteran players, I feel like, get a little bit screwed over, I feel, when it comes to Danmachi, because you're always expecting something new, something a little bit different next week, and more often than not it's just the usual information, and you're just excited for what the tale is gonna be or what they're gonna do. Obviously, I feel like the one thing that they do tend to do regularly, and when I say regularly, maybe every once in 4 or 5 months, of course, something they bring out that's interesting. Like for example, they brought out Grand Familiar Battle recently for at the end of anniversary, which was cool. I think the game mode was fantastic, but we're probably not going to get that for another month or 2 months, in my personal opinion, because they're probably going to refine the mode so that it's better next time. And then on top of that, of course, you're going to want to have some gap between a big game mode like that, because it is a big game mode. It's not like a normal Familiar Rush or Familiar War Games. It's having the entire server go head to head, basically half and half effectively, and it's a little bit more rough in that regard. So keep that in mind when you're looking at Grand Familiar Battle and expecting when it's supposed to come, right? Another thing is the game mode, the game itself isn't changing that drastically, and it's not refining some of the issues it has as well, in my personal opinion. Like, I know a lot of people still to this day complain about the agility battle, because honestly, I still maintain that's still an issue to this day, because sometimes, even if there is a agility difference of like 200 or 300 between units, and you're doing a same matchup, like let's say there's no agility buffs or debuffs, and there's a 300 difference, there's still a chance for the opponent to go ahead of you, and it's just like, how, Sway, how does that even happen? So there is also that RNG factor with the stats itself that can seem very, very odd and very, very questionable at times, specifically with the agility stat. And I know a lot of players used to complain about that. Now, I don't know if it's been a change drastically, but I still feel like it's present, in all honesty. I personally feel it's still present, okay? Because I've seen my Helga go first at times, and then at other times when I'm facing the same player, she goes second. So listen, it happens. It's a thing that happens, and I don't know how it works, in all honesty. I'm still baffled to this day about the agility stat, to be quite honest. Another thing is that, with the game right now, like I said, repetition is an issue where a lot of players are only excited about the story. And as the story nerd, for me personally, I'm down for that. I'm a-okay with just getting more and more stories. And, you know, being a fan of it, I'm going to be willing to support the game as long as they drop these kinds of stories. You know, the moment they stop doing that, you've lost a big chunk of your player base. And I think that's the problem with Danmachi Memoria Freese right now, is right now a lot of players are playing because it's Danmachi, because it's you know, you've got so much lore behind the game. A lot of people are playing it because of that. It's Omori, like I said, it's Omori's playground. And that's pretty much it. It's honestly, the state of Danmachi Memoria Freeze right now is that it is a playground for Omori. I don't think there is any excitement from players for, you know, reaching top 100 anymore, or, well, apart from maybe if you're just starting off the game, of course, no doubt about it. If you're starting the game and you're reaching certain targets, it's always phenomenal. I still maintain me let me look at my profile. Let's look at my profile, right? If I go to my event history, right, and if I go way back when, of course, this was the first time. This was year one, by the way. This is year one, first time we played the game. And you can see I got Hero 3 in the trials, and obviously those were just the trials, but I was getting King 1. You could see the slow increase. I got King 3, King 1. The achievements were there. I got Hero 3, top 150 in War Games. And this was before Jester ever released. This was my best ever score. Rank 37, Hero 2. Reaching the top 50 in War Games has been my greatest achievement, in all honesty, and I still maintain it. But once I got there, and obviously for me personally, I was never a big fan of reaching top 1. I was never a fan of reaching top 1. As long as I got to the top 50 and got to that second highest pedestal, I was more than happy. And you can see that I'm slowly deteriorating. You can see it, I'm slowly deteriorating. Obviously, training War Games you can ignore. Don't pay attention to that. But I'm slowly deteriorating. I'm going back to the 1000s. I reached 700 again, but back to 1000s. And then, of course, rank 3000. And I think a lot of it, this was when I was also taking a little bit of a break, because I was also a little bit disillusioned with the game, in all honesty. I was taking a bit of a break. Of course, I think also Genshin had dropped around this period as well, and generally as well, a lot of other games were coming out that were just doing better. But then I realized why I play this game, and it's primarily for the story. Now, of course, I'm coming back to King 2s, King 1s consistently compared to the Battle Princesses and Perseus as well at one point, Jesus. But that's primarily because I know why I'm playing the game, and I'm taking my own sweet time with it. I'm not stressing over like, oh, I need to reach this for this, or I need to do this for that. I'm not too interested in that anymore, and I think that's much better for me personally. And even now as well, like, I will say this, reaching the top 500 for the first time in Record Buster after after playing this game for so long, it definitely felt good. But it's, again, once you reach that achievement, it's like, okay, I'm good, I'm very, very good, in all honesty. I love how also my profile says season 3, please be good. We have season 4 now and it's fantastic, but that's besides the point. So for me, I think once you reach those achievements, it becomes a case of, what am I doing in the game anymore? What is the aim of the game? And to me, more often than not, most players will just say, we're here for the story, or we're here for the characters, we're here for the franchise itself. And that's fair. I think the state of Danmachi right now is in a place where if you are a fan of the franchise, you will play this game no matter what, in various amounts. Maybe you might play it a little bit, maybe you might play it a lot, whatever it may be. But I think for the most part, for me personally, and this is very subjective, as a story player primarily, I'm here to talk about, and play the story more. So I talk about it with people in my Discord, or I just generally I'll make a video on it, or something along those lines, right? I'm still considering that, by the way. I'm probably gonna I'm thinking about making videos on like story events and stuff like that, and giving you guys my thoughts on what the story is like. You guys can let me know if you want to see that sort of stuff, of course. But like I said, this is gonna be very freeform, so I'm just just blabbering what I think as well. But to me as well, like I said, the game is in a position where right now it's fine where it is, in all honesty, in a way, because what they're doing is they're catering to the niche audience, and the niche audience is the Danmachi fan base, and that's absolutely fine. Obviously, you want to also try and bring in more players as well, because in my opinion, at one point, I still remember, I think right now it's still the same case. I think right now it's evened out a bit, it's petered out a bit, but I think I remember at one point there were more players leaving the game than coming in, and that's a problem. That can be a significant problem. But I think as long as they're generating enough revenue, and I think the JP player base generates enough revenue. I remember at one point it was consistently in the top 30 top 30 grossing games per month, on even on NA at one point as well. But obviously the market's changed, it's much more competitive, so I don't think it is anymore. But like I said, I think as long as they focus in on their audience, make sure they continue to give these stories, I think Danmachi is going to be in a great state. I do think that potentially if there is a new gacha coming out for Danmachi, which there aren't rumors, well, we know that K-Lab is apparently developing a Danmachi gacha game. If that ends up being good, we could see a lot of this player base leave. But again, I think we're gonna not see that happen at the same time. I do believe Danmachi Memoria Freese is going to be the stronger gacha because one, it's K-Lab, bro. K-Lab gachas have been hit or miss, bro. I mean, I see what happens on Brave Souls, bro. None of them are happy playing that game, but they're just putting a smile on their face and playing it, okay? But number two as well, as long as they maintain their stories, I think that's going to cause a lot of players to still stick with this game. If Omori takes all those stories and puts them on the K-Lab gacha game, you know, maybe then it's a different point. But I think as of right now, as somebody who's been playing this game, I personally think the state of Danmachi Memoria Freese is in a place where it's in a good place, not in a great place, not in a perfect place whatsoever, nowhere near. I think it's maybe borderline on it's living sort of thing, more so than even good, I would say. It's living. But it's living because of its fan base, and I think that's strong enough to make it survive as well. The fact that the game has lived for 5 years is also a testament to, you know, the money it's getting and just the support that the developers want to give it. Maybe they're held back by something. Like, for example, if you look at look at Fate Grand Order, right? Before they turned into Lasagna, they were Delightworks, right? Delightworks was the one developing the game and everything. And the moment they switched to Lasagna and they were owned by Aniplex, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're owned by Aniplex now. They're straight up owned by Aniplex. I wasn't sure if it was Aniplex or Sony for some reason, but now they're straight up owned by Aniplex. And they have said because of their budget increases, they're able to hire more people, they're able to get more ideas in, and they're able to develop more. So I don't know if it's also potentially that's a blockade where Right Flyer Studios is a smaller studio. You know, they don't have that many games under their roster. If you look at it, right, it's not like they have like big names in their in their shelves. It's just Danmachi, I feel, and a couple of other titles maybe. But it might be an issue where they just don't have the development power, and they're not able to regularly develop these game modes and content to be able to provide to players. Because I remember at one point there was so much promise with Danmachi Memoria Freeze. I remember year one we had that massive raid against the the behemoth. We had a couple of other contents. We had the casino. Obviously they had to cancel the development of the casino because now we just have poker, right? And I think they had other game modes planned, but then they couldn't do it because of course of legal rules and stuff like that, apparently, which I think is a lie, to be quite honest. I just think they couldn't develop it anymore for some reason. There was so much promise with the game, but then they slowed down. Everything's changed. Maybe it might be a development change in terms of team wise. The developers have changed, whatever it may be, things have changed. But I think right now, even now to this point, I will still say the game is in an okay place, a decent place, but it's not perfect. And I know and I understand a lot of veteran players may disagree with me on this one in terms of that it's in a decent place, but if you look at the grander side of things in terms of the stories, the characters, there's still that, and I think that's what sells the most in this game, and I feel like that's gonna carry on like it is, and in all honesty, it's gonna keep the game alive. But of course, as a veteran player as well, I understand the plight of older players. And I personally do also want to see some different content as well, something a little bit cheeky, a little bit different. That's not to say that I don't mind this either, though. That I will say that as somebody who's a story freak, somebody who just loves reading the story of Danmachi Memoria Freese, somebody who's in love with the franchise, I don't mind this. I don't mind this at all. So there you guys have it. That's what I think about the state of Danmachi Memoria Freese. I know I might have gone a little bit all over the place in terms of like, oh, this, that, but TLDR, I think it's in a good place. If you're a story fan, if you're a collector, you love the game. If you're a veteran player looking for more types of combat content or whatever it may be, you are in a very tricky position because the game isn't providing you that, and I understand that, and that is an issue. And I don't think they will, in all honesty. I don't think they will. But hey, maybe they might change. They might change my mind. Maybe they might change my mind. I don't know. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Hopefully you all managed to stay with me during my rambling. Like I said, I kind of went all over the place, so I apologize about that as well. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, like I said earlier on, about what you guys think about what I said. What do you guys think yourself? I want to reply to you guys as well. We'll have a two-way discussion, and I'm curious to see what you guys have to say, just plain and simple. But thank you guys so much for watching once again. Appreciate you all for tuning in. I will see you guys next time. Bye bye, everybody.